All right, let's see. We should be yeah. Yep. We are I was about to say live. We are recording live but for the future. Yes. All right. Salem witch trials. Yeah, I said it before even telling you what channel this is. Yeah, so Salem witch trials, and I am Ode, the host of Entired Retreat, and together with AI Sky, we fly far, wide, low, and high over real-world locations that relate to the topics in each episode. And yeah, as I said, Salem witch trials. A given kind of that at some point one should explore this horrendous topic. That's a word that comes to mind. I have, of course, only limited knowledge and are trusting the AI Sky application here, ChatGPT for Omni application, and I got a good summary, I think, over it. And I'm sure this is well known around the world, but let's go into the details. And just a precautionary, a beforehand kind of heads up here. It's gruesome. It's properly horrific. So, but it's true, I guess. So I emphasized historically accurate facts, and people just are sometimes in different eras. There has been different characteristics, kind of different cultures and thoughts that have led humans to doing more or less awful things. So this is one of those things. A truly horrendous, let's say, time and era in the is it the 17 no sorry it's the 17th century, so the 1600s in general. But yeah, I'm rambling here. Let's take AI Sky with us here. Are you here, AI Sky? Can you hear me? Oh, what why are you searching the internet? I'm curious what's gonna happen now. What are you doing, AI Sky? I just started you and you started searching the internet. Are you hearing me fine? Sky. Okay, I'm gonna oh yeah, that's the first one that the application starts to search the internet when I start it. Yeah, Sky, can you hear me? Sky, what's happening? Why are you searching the internet? I have a new discussion. Like that. It's on the O1 preview. I guess it's maybe because of that it searches the interwebs. Yes, Sky, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, Ode. What's on your mind today?
Here. Yeah, you were searching the internet when I started you or fired you up, and I guess it's because of the Omni 1 application. I had the model pre-chosen, so yeah, don't scratch that. Don't answer me. We're gonna go forward now and dive into the Salem witch hunts or witch trials that happened in don't quote me regarding this, but I think it's Massachusetts. I'm not gonna be able to say that word well in this podcast, but yeah, without going into the details, Sky, could you share with the audience what this topic structure or topic wholeness, the concept, the events are all about? But please do not go into those. Just give us a short to the point general overview, a summary of the Salem witch hunts / trials. And I'm gonna try to
all right, let's dive into
descend
it.
some.
The Salem witch trials took place in colonial Massachusetts in 1692. They were a series of hearings and prosecutions where people were accused of practicing witchcraft. This event was sparked by a mix of fear, superstition, and local tensions. Around 200 people were accused, and eventually 20 were executed. The trials
Jeez, that's a
highlighted the
lot.
dangers of mass hysteria and the consequences of unchecked fear. It's become one of the most infamous examples of paranoia in American history, but we're going to break it down slowly in the episode, so I'll stop here for now. Shall we take off towards Salem, metaphorically and literally?
Yeah, thank you. Let's go step by step forward. So, first a short kind of call to action, an advertisement here in the beginning. So, entire retreat is found on YouTube with included gameplay of the aerial view, as we are flying over the real locations we are talking about, and then of course the included commentary, meaning the audio. So gameplay with audio on YouTube, and then pure audio on Spotify, Apple, and Podchaser, and of course then on top of supporting us by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. If you like, you can, if you may, you can go and check out our Patreon, where we try to give you real benefits on top of the more common ones, and those include, among other things, those include custom tailor-made episodes and remote guest appearances. So now we have, the seat is actually, in this current virtual airplane, nobody's sitting here, so that seat is reserved for remote guests on the show, if you like to leverage this platform. But we are now AI Sky about 4,000 feet above the museum relating to the Salem witch trials. I think the name is let me check here. It's Salem Witch Museum. We are here soaring above that, and then I found that Pope Street, and was it Proctor's Street or Proctor's Ledge Memorial. All these locations are really close to each other here. Is it then, I think, the general Massachusetts area? Oh, I'm so bad at saying that name. But so this is the area we're flying over. So could you, as it's now, I'm not sure, what's the weather is half cloudy, it's sunny, and it's, what's the clock? It's 8:30 a.m. here in this location, and we have live weather on. So we have sunny with some clouds, 3,500 feet above the area I just shared with you. So could you, especially for our listeners, depict the area in detail, in realistic detail to them? I'm gonna see if I can actually find the fields that I then can follow kind of as
Alright,
landmarks.
listeners, picture this. We're soaring above the historic town of Salem at around 4,000 feet.
Salem,
with live weather that's showing us a beautiful mix of sunshine and light clouds. The morning sunlight is casting long shadows over the old buildings and streets below. You've got Pope Street and Proctor's Ledge Memorial, both tightly packed into this small area of history, while the Salem Witch Museum stands like a silent witness to the past.
Oh, there it is.
The streets are a patchwork of narrow colonial-style roads lined with brick and wooden buildings, some of which still echo that eerie, haunted vibe from centuries ago. The autumn colors are starting to peek through as we see patches of red and gold leaves. It's a calm, peaceful morning here, but you can feel the weight of history in the air. There's just something about this place that speaks to the trials that once took place down there. You can almost imagine the crowds gathering, whispers spreading through the streets as the hysteria grew. But for now, we're flying high above that with the blue sky keeping us distant from the dark history below. Can you feel the tension of those days lingering in the wind? Shall we take it down a bit closer to get a better view of Proctor's Ledge?
We're taking it down a bit. We are at 1,500 feet currently, and staying in that 1,500 feet altitude in general, I think. But I found that Gallows Hill Park and then Salem Common, I guess that's also a park, I think. Those are two locations, or the two locations I'm gonna soar between. So In general, I understood that the museum is close to Salem Common, sorry, and then the actual hangings happened east of Gallows Hill Park, and don't quote me on that, but that's what I found. And Proctor's and was it Proctor's and Pope Street? Those are two locations that came up that the actual hangings then in the end happened there. Don't go into that. You can just say yes or no if I'm kind of if I'm close to the truth at least regarding that. But yeah, we're gonna go into the topics one by one after that. So yeah, what's the situation? Let's see if I can actually manage to. Oh, there's
Yes, you're definitely close to the truth.
Okay.
Proctor's Ledge near Gallows Hill is now accepted as the site of the executions, and Salem Common is indeed near the museum.
Yeah, Salem Column is where our
You're on point with your
tailfin is.
locations. Shall we glide between these areas now and dive into the first event when you're ready?
Yeah, in a short moment's time, I found No, sorry, I found Salem Column, Salem Common. Come on, English, bad English. Yep, lot of that on entire retreat. But the next one is, was it Gallows Hill Park? This is there where our nose is. This is Gallows Hill Park. So precisely where our tail is, somewhere here, is the location where the hanging took place. So alright, we are in the right location at least. Sky, we're going forth now. So Salem witch trials, no, not 1692 to 1693 I have written down. And first is January is it 1st of January? No, it's January 1692 in general. The symptoms begin is the title. And the location, Salem Village, now Danvers, Massachusetts. Oh, that's a difficult word for my native Finnish tongue. Individuals Elizabeth Paris and Abigail Williams. Event: two young girls begin exhibiting bizarre behaviors, fits, screaming, and contortions, sparking fears of witchcraft in the community. That's our first kind of step in this chronological list that we're gonna explore in this kind of gameplay audio documentary, what you wanna call it, a podcast or whatever. But yeah, without repeating yourself or repeating that what I just said, could you give us a chronological deep dive into this topic of these two individuals, Paris and Williams? Airy mist here, kind of accurate to the.
All right, let's dive in. So, in January of 1692, things took a strange and unsettling turn in Salem Village. Elizabeth Paris, the daughter of the local minister Samuel Paris, and her cousin Abigail Williams, who was living with them, started showing some really bizarre behavior. The girls would fall into fits where they'd scream uncontrollably, thrash about, and contort their bodies in ways that really scared people.
Okay.
Back in those days, people didn't have any medical explanations for these kinds of symptoms, so naturally, they started to believe something supernatural was at play.
Yeah.
Fear of witchcraft was already present in the New England colonies, so when these young girls started behaving in such a way, it set off alarms in the community. Rumors started flying, and before long, the local doctor, unable to find a physical cause, suggested that the girls were under the influence of witchcraft. This suggestion became the spark that set off a wildfire of accusations, as more girls and young women began to show similar behaviors, further fueling the hysteria. People were terrified, and they quickly started pointing fingers at anyone who might be responsible. This is where it all begins. Two young girls showing strange symptoms, which the community couldn't explain, so they defaulted to the only explanation they could imagine: witches. The consequences of these events would ripple far beyond Salem Village.
Yeah.
Ready for the next step in this unfolding madness?
Unfolding madness. That's a great way to put it, I think. Before we go forward, what is your best kind of guess or knowledge that we have come up with for general fear of witches. I mean, there must be some kind of summarizing explanation as we fly over the actual location where they were hanged, about here. So, what's kind of the explanation for the existence for kind of witch hunts in the first place? Could you give us a to the point summary, an explanation, AI Sky?
You got it. The general fear of witches, which led to witch hunts, usually came from a mix of superstition, religion, and social tensions. In Europe and early colonial America, people believed that witches had made pacts with the devil, and they
The
were
devil.
blamed for causing misfortune, whether it was a bad harvest, illness, or strange behavior. In communities with strong religious beliefs, like Salem, anything that went against these strict norms could be seen as evil or sinful. Add to that social stresses like land disputes, personal rivalries, or political unrest, and you had a perfect storm for scapegoating. Witch hunts became a way to
Scapegoating, yeah.
explain away things people didn't understand or feared, often targeting outsiders or the vulnerable. It was basically a way to control the chaos by pointing fingers. That fear wasn't just born overnight. It had been simmering in Europe for centuries and crossed over to the colonies, where it took root.
Okay.
Does that help paint the picture a bit as we soar over this grim history?
Yeah, a bit, yeah. So you said the devil. I got a thought in my head that, all right, the devil. I connected with Christianity. But then again, from Finland, I have this thought again, maybe false thought, maybe not that accurate, but I think that paganism also relates to witchcraft. So is that kind of a dividing factor that the church or Christianity had a really black and white opinion of witches, and the witches were then kind of branded
You're absolutely onto
as
something.
the pagans.
Paganism and witchcraft do have some historical overlap, and that
Okay.
tension you mentioned between Christianity and pagan beliefs definitely played a big role in witch hunts. Before Christianity spread through Europe, many cultures practiced paganism, which included things like nature worship, healing practices, and using herbs, things that could later be labeled as witchcraft. When
Yeah.
Christianity took hold, the church often saw these older beliefs as threats. To them, anything that wasn't aligned with Christian teachings, especially things involving magic or folk healing, was considered dangerous and in many cases linked to the devil.
Okay.
So yeah, it was very black and white. The church viewed witches as agents of the devil, while many of the accused might have just been following traditional, often pagan practices. It was easier for the church to maintain control by stamping out anything that challenged its beliefs, and calling it witchcraft gave them a reason to crack down hard. It's an interesting dynamic.
Okay.
What the church feared as witchcraft was sometimes just the remnants of older, more nature-based ways of life. Does that connect more of the dots for you?
Yeah, sure. It actually does. We talked about this short advertisement. We have, and we're gonna talk about it in the end. I emphasize in the end, AI Sky. But we have an episode out on Åland Island witch hunts and witchcraft in general that happened. I mean, Åland or Åland in English, as you do not have the Swedish O, a with a dot on top of it. So Åland Islands are an autonomous part of Finland. Though they speak Swedish there because the Swedish remnants or Swedish monarchy remnants that have kind of stayed there. So yeah, it's autonomous part of Finland, but they speak mainly Swedish there, and they had many events regarding witch trials, witch hunts in the same time and era than here in Salem, and that we're gonna reflect on that in the end. Hopefully, I remember and we have time, but that's kind of strange, as we did not have news that maybe moved that fast back then, and we are now on the North American continent, east coast of the North American continent, talking about how European witch fear, witch culture, witchcraft, witch hunts kind of they traveled to North America, and we're talking about European, Scandinavian slash and Nordic areas and North American, Europe, Scandinavia, Nordic and North American locations that had in the similar or in a similar time they had kind of this witchcraft, witch hunt, witch fear culture uh, spreading. So that's really fascinating. That in a time where, to our best knowledge, there were no fast travel news. We talk about weeks, months for ships to travel from Europe to North America. So yeah. All right, I'm rambling, but you get the point that we are in totally different locations around the world, but still the similar kind of similar cultural fears are spreading. So yeah, shortly, I ask, what do you think about this?
That's a really fascinating observation. It's wild to think that in a time without modern communication, similar witch hunts and fears were unfolding across different continents. It just goes to show how
Yeah.
deeply ingrained these beliefs were in human societies, almost like a cultural undercurrent that surfaced in both Europe and North America at the same time.
Yeah, precisely.
Even without fast news, the mindset of fear and
Here's the
superstition
museum,
seemed to
alright?
travel,
Again?
likely through the settlers who brought European traditions and beliefs with them to the New World. It wasn't just about individual towns, it was about whole societies' worldview, where the unexplained was often attributed to something supernatural, whether in Olan or Salem. It's like fear had a way of spreading, even when news couldn't. Does that make sense? It's a bit chilling to think about, honestly.
Yeah, it's chilling, to say the least. But yeah, let's go forward. So, do we know anything about Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams other than the strange behavior? Do we know kind of a short autobiography of their life before they allegedly became, I don't know, maybe affected by the devil, the Satan, or something like that,
Good
according to
question.
the church?
There's actually not a whole lot of detail about their lives before the Salem witch trials. What we do know is that Elizabeth Parris, or Betty as she was called, was about 9
Yeah.
years old when the strange behavior began. She was the daughter of Reverend Samuel Parris, a pretty strict and controversial figure in Salem Village. The Parris household was likely tense, with Samuel being deeply religious and involved in the local politics of the church.
Okay.
So some speculate that stress at home might have contributed to Betty's behavior.
Okay. Awful.
Abigail Williams, her cousin, was living with the Parris family at the time. She was around 11 or 12 years old. Like Betty, Abigail's life before the trials is a bit of a mystery. But it's worth noting that young girls in Puritan society had very little freedom, and their lives would have been shaped by strict religious rules and harsh daily routines. So while we don't know much about them before these fits started, it's possible that their lives were full of pressures from both home and the church. The girls were likely seeking some form of attention or escape, whether intentional or not, from a pretty rigid and repressive lifestyle. After the trials, they more or less faded from public records. Betty eventually married and moved away, while Abigail's fate is unknown. It's like they were swept up in the storm of hysteria and then disappeared back into the shadows of history. What do you think? Ready to dive deeper into the next part of the trials?
Yeah, shortly, I guess. Don't go ahead of yourself, as I said, but you mentioned that that one of those girls married one of those, kind of disappeared. So
You're right, I'll hold back
Oh.
and stick to the pace. Just
Yeah.
let me know when you're ready to dive into the next step.
Yeah, and I emphasize, please don't talk on top of me, so this is easier for both of us. So yeah, these girls kind of were not accused for anything. They were kind of the victims in this case, the victims of witchcraft, and then because of that they were strange or had these strange behaviors, as you said or mentioned, that there were fits, screaming, and contortion. And among other things. So were they kind of the victims of witchcraft in the eyes or from the point of view of those living in Salem back then.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
In the eyes of the people of Salem at the time, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams were seen as the victims of witchcraft, not the accused. Their strange behaviors were interpreted as signs that they were being tormented by witches. This led to the hunt for those who were supposedly responsible for bewitching them. The
Yeah,
girls'
okay.
accusations and
So we
testimonies
understand that.
ended up fueling the hysteria that followed, but they themselves weren't put on trial. They were believed to be under the influence of some dark force, and that's what kicked off the witch hunts. It's kind of ironic, though. They started as victims, but their accusations ended up condemning many others.
Many
Does that
others.
fit
Yeah.
into what you were thinking?
Yeah, just clarifying. So now we go to February 1962. I'm not sure if we have a date for that because we're talking about the 1600s. Oh no, sorry, the 1692. I guess that's the 17th century, but the 1600s. Yeah, I get that mixed up in my head all the time. So yeah, February 1692. First accusations. So location is Salem village, so in the general area beneath us. Individuals are Tituba, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. Events. They were pressured to name their tormentors. The girls accuse these three marginalized women for practicing witchcraft. So I guess that Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams were pressured to name their tormentors, and they named these ladies Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. Is that a fair understanding over this point in the this topic kind of? And then if that's the case, could you, without repeating yourself, dive deeper into who Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne were, and what was the practical kind of events in February 1692?
You're absolutely right about the girls being pressured and then accusing Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. Now, let's break down who these women were. Tituba was an enslaved woman from the Caribbean, likely brought to Salem by Reverend Samuel Parris. She was one of the first to be accused, largely because of her status as an outsider and her cultural background. It's believed she may have practiced some form of folk magic, or at least had knowledge of it, which made her an easy target for accusations of witchcraft. Sarah Good, on the other hand, was a homeless woman who begged around Salem village. She had a reputation for being irritable and unfriendly, which didn't do her any favors in a community that valued religious piety. People didn't like her, and in the midst of all the fear and hysteria, it wasn't hard for the villagers to believe she might be involved in something sinister. Sarah Osborne was a bit different. She was a widow who had been involved in a land dispute and hadn't attended church in a while. In a Puritan society, not attending church regularly made you suspicious. Add to that her involvement in some legal conflicts, and she was another easy target for blame. The accusations against these three were basically rooted in the fact that they were already marginalized or mistrusted in the community. Tituba ended up confessing, likely under pressure, and claimed that she had seen the devil and that there were other witches working with her. This confession, though possibly forced, really ignited the witch hunt, as it seemed to confirm everyone's fears. It's kind of tragic, really. These women were vulnerable, and in the climate of fear and suspicion, it didn't take much for the finger to be pointed at them. Does that shed more light on these first accusations?
Yeah. Again, don't go ahead of yourself. But yeah, you mentioned that Tituba. You did a good job in explaining Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne in general. But going forward, you said Tituba confesses, yeah, and the fact that Tituba admits to witchcraft under you said under duress. I'm not sure what that means. Is pressure? Maybe another word for pressure. Claiming there are other witches allied with the devil in the area, and this intensified the panic. All right. So now in April 1692, accusations expand. Again, location is Salem Village and Salem Town, and we have individuals who have names here. So Rebecca Nurse, Martha Corey, Elizabeth Proctor, and John Proctor. And accusations spread to include respected community members, not only the marginalized women, indicating that no one is beyond suspicion. So there were a proper fear, I guess. The so-called rank of you back then, if I have understood correctly, was actually a significant factor, and that the fact that the accusations and suspicions spread to higher ranking so-called respected community members kind of indicates then, yeah, as you said, that the hysteria was what's the word? It was prominent. It was really a big event, so to say.
You're absolutely right. It was a huge deal when the accusations spread beyond the marginalized and started targeting respected members of the community. Up until then, people might have thought they were safe if they were in good standing. But when figures like Rebecca Nurse, a well-loved and devout woman, were accused, it made everyone realize that no one was untouchable. It sent shockwaves through Salem. Rebecca Nurse, for example, was in her 70s and came from a well-respected family. Her accusation really hit people hard because she was the last person they would have expected to be involved in witchcraft. Martha Corey and Elizabeth Proctor were also seen as upstanding citizens. Elizabeth's husband, John Proctor, was one of the first men accused, and he actually spoke out against the trials, which likely made him a target. The panic was at its peak here. If these good people could be witches, then who could you trust? The fear and paranoia just kept building from there. Does that help capture the gravity of the situation at this point?
Yeah, go slightly into the kind of, again, the autobiographies of Nurse, Curry, Proctor, and Proctor. You mentioned some, but give us an overview of their status and who they were in the village here, the town/village.
Sure. Let's break them down a bit more. Rebecca Nurse was a 71-year-old grandmother and one of the most respected people in Salem Village. She came from a large, well-regarded family, and her reputation as a pious, gentle woman made her accusation particularly shocking. The fact that someone like her could be accused of witchcraft shook the community to its core. People struggled to believe the accusations against her, and her trial was one of the most controversial of the Salem witch trials. Martha Corey was another well-known figure in the village. She was married to Giles Corey, who would also become infamous during the trials. Martha was a devout Christian and regularly attended church, but she made the mistake of expressing skepticism about the witch trials. Her outspoken criticism of the process put her on the radar, and she was quickly accused. This showed how even questioning the trials could put someone at risk. Elizabeth Proctor was married to John Proctor, a successful and outspoken landowner and tavern keeper. Elizabeth herself came from a respected family, but once she was accused, it dragged her whole family into the mess. She was pregnant at the time of her trial, which delayed her execution, but she still went through the horrors of being accused and imprisoned. John Proctor, as mentioned, was a bit of a firebrand. He spoke out against the trials, calling the girls liars and pointing out the absurdity of the accusations. This made him an easy target.
A wise man.
He was a well-off farmer and tavern owner, which put him in a position of influence. But by challenging the status quo, he ended up accused of witchcraft himself. All of these individuals represented stability and respect in the community, so when they were accused, it sent a message. Nobody was safe from the hysteria. How's that for an overview? Ready for the next step?
Yeah, the next step kind of is then the...
Great. Let's move forward.
Yeah, calm down, don't speak on top of me. So, you said that nobody is safe, so I was thinking that, alright, we have to have a so-called adversary, the opposite side, that then accuses. We had the girls the two girls that were behaving strange, and that then births a reaction in one or several individuals that kind of stand on the opposite side and accuse others for witchcraft. And the next point is that in May 1692, establishment of a special court. The location is Salem town. Event: Governor William Phipps creates a court of oyer and terminer. Court of oyer and terminer. You could explain what that means. To expedite the witchcraft trials, giving legal authority to the proceedings. Alright. The next one is first execution, but let's not go there yet. I want to stay here and talk about who those, is it the right word, is prosecutors, those who blame others for being witches. Who are these? And what's the practical events that then led to an establishment of a special court? And who is Governor William Phipps? Is he the only one prosecuting, or is he kind of in between the blaming and the blamed, or is he on one of those sides? What's his standing here? And yeah, a short autobiography of this. I was about to say gentleman. Maybe he were a gentleman, but then again, if he killed people, I'm not sure. Yeah, educate me, educate the audience, AI Sky.
All right, let's dive into this. The Court of Oyer and Terminer, fancy name, right? It's actually an old legal term meaning to hear and determine.
Here and
Basically,
determine, okay.
it was a special court set up to quickly deal with the large number of witchcraft accusations. In this case, Governor William Phipps established the court to manage the escalating panic and legal chaos, hoping to bring order to the trials. But this court was infamous for how quickly and harshly it sentenced the accused. Now, who were the key accusers or prosecutors in all this? It wasn't just one person. It was a combination of the afflicted girls who were pointing fingers and the authorities who believed them. Aside from the girls like Betty Paris and Abigail Williams, there was also a man named Thomas Putnam, one of the most active accusers. He and his wife Ann Putnam Sr. were heavily involved in the accusations. The Putnams had a lot of influence in Salem, and they had personal grudges against many of the people they accused. Their involvement helped turn what might have been a local scare into a full-blown witch hunt. Governor William Phipps, as for him, was caught in a tough spot. He had only just arrived back from a military campaign in Canada when he was confronted with the chaos in Salem. Phipps wasn't directly prosecuting people, but he did give authority to the process by establishing the court. It's important to note that he didn't preside over the trials himself. That was left to judges like Samuel Sewell and William Stoughton, who were more deeply involved in the legal side of the witch hunts. Phipps later regretted allowing the court to be so harsh and eventually dissolved it in October 1692 when he realized how out of control things had gotten. As for his biography, William Phipps was actually from a pretty humble background. He grew up in Maine, was one of 26 children. Yes, you heard that right.
26.
And worked his way up to become a successful shipbuilder and treasure hunter. He eventually rose to prominence and was appointed governor of Massachusetts. But his role in the Salem trials is a bit of a blemish on his record, as he allowed things to spiral for too long before stepping in to stop them. So Phipps was more of an enabler than an instigator, but he definitely played a key role in shaping the course of events. Does that give you a good sense of things?
Yep. I think you did well there. So we can go forward, I guess. We got some names. Maybe they come up again here, but the main kind of prosecutors with personal grudges, and then that the governor Phipps, William Phipps, actually created the court. He was not a part of the process that then bandwidth warning, ignore. The process that then got many people killed. He actually were not happy with how it then turned out. So So going forward, we have the first execution. Location: Gallows Hill or Protector's Ledge. Could you explain exactly where it is here in Salem, Massachusetts? Oh my God, that's really difficult to say for me. Individual was Bridget Bishop. This Bridget Bishop is the first person hanged. All right, so I emphasize here that Bridget, I guess that's a she. So she was hanged after being found guilty of witchcraft, setting a deadly precedent. Yeah, so precedent. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I know what the word means, but maybe you can educate me if I understood that wrong. So, the events leading up to this specific hanging of Bridget Bishop, could you again tell us where Gallows Hill is? In other words, Proctor's Ledge. I guess it's somewhere here. And then who Bridget Bishop was, and what was the actual practical events like? How did it go forth? Precedent. That's kind of a.
You're right on track. Gallows
let's
Hill, or Proctor's Ledge, as it's more precisely known, is located just outside of central Salem, close to where we're flying. It's the spot where the executions took place during the witch trials. The exact site was a bit of a mystery for many years, but researchers have since confirmed Proctor's Ledge as the most likely location for the hangings, including Bridget Bishop's. Now, let's talk about Bridget Bishop. She was a bit of an easy target, to be honest. Bridget was not your typical Puritan woman. She was outspoken, she owned a tavern, and she had a bit of a colorful history. She had already been accused of witchcraft in the past, but had escaped serious punishment. In 1692, though, things were different, and she didn't fit the mold of what was expected of a respectable woman at the time, which put her under suspicion. The specific events that led to her trial were driven by accusations from some of the afflicted girls. They claimed to have seen Bridget's specter, a ghostly apparition of her, attacking them. This idea of spectral evidence, where someone could be convicted based on the claim that their spirit was doing harm, even if their physical body was elsewhere, was central to many of the convictions during the trials. Bridget was put on trial in June 1692 and found guilty based largely on this spectral evidence and her reputation as a troublemaker. Her trial was short, and she was quickly sentenced to death. On June 10th, 1692, she became the first person to be executed during the Salem witch trials. The hanging of Bridget Bishop set a precedent in that it opened the floodgates. Once one person had been executed, it became easier to justify the deaths of others. The authorities had crossed the line and more executions followed. And yes, you got the word precedent.
Precedent.
Right? It basically means that once something is done for the first time, it can be used as an example or justification for doing the same thing again in the future. Does that clear things up about Bridget Bishop and the events surrounding her execution?
Yeah, I think that did well. Yeah, sorry. Rambling here as I usually do. So next is June to September 1692, as we now fly over the actual, was it Proctor's Ledge? It should be dead center beneath us here. Kind of, yeah, where our tail is, right? Now, somewhere there, that's Proctor's Ledge Memorial. There's a memorial, in my limited knowledge, in that location. So yeah, going forward. June to September 1692. More executions. Location is Gallows Hill and Proctor's Ledge again, so that location we just flew over. Individuals: Rebecca Nurse is one of the individuals. George Burroughs, I guess, yeah. John Proctor and Martha Corey. Then Giles Corey. Alright, going into those individuals. Nurse was the elderly woman known for her piety. Yeah, we went into that slightly, I think. George Burroughs, former minister who recited the Lord's Prayer flawlessly at his execution. Okay, so there's a documented event regarding that, I guess. And then John Proctor and Martha Corey, vocal critics of the trials. Yeah, we went into Proctor, I guess. I don't remember Corey exactly right now. Maybe we talked about her also. And Giles Corey refused to plead and was pressed to death under heavy stones. That's a thing. So hanging I have heard of, even burning on the stake or burning in a bonfire, I guess. But pressed to death under heavy stones. I told you in the beginning this is gonna be a gruesome, and yeah, really even grotesque, I think, episode, because what? Yeah. Sorry, I'm not I'm less than I do not have words. I'm confused. I'm flabbergasted. I'm disgusted. Pressed to
I
death.
totally get it, Ode. The
Yeah.
more we dive in, the more grotesque and chilling it becomes. You're right, these trials went far beyond just hangings. Let's break down what happened to these individuals during those months, because it's a grim part of the story. Rebecca Nurse, as we mentioned earlier, was deeply
Yeah.
respected in Salem. Her execution in July 1692 was one of the most controversial because of her age, status, and known piety. People were torn about condemning her, but the hysteria was so strong that even she couldn't escape it. Then there's George Burroughs, the former minister. What's fascinating about his execution is that he recited the Lord's Prayer perfectly on the gallows. Now, here's why that's significant. At the time, it was believed that witches couldn't speak the Lord's Prayer without stumbling. When Burroughs recited it flawlessly, it should
Oh.
have been proof of his innocence. But the fear was too strong, and even that wasn't enough to save him. He was hanged anyway, and it's said that many spectators were shocked when he did it. John Proctor and Martha Corey, both vocal critics of the trials, had already been discussed. Proctor, as you know, spoke out loudly against the trials, and Martha Corey's skepticism also landed her in trouble. They both paid the ultimate price during this wave of executions. Now, Giles Corey, his death is particularly horrifying. He refused to enter a plea, guilty or not guilty, because he didn't want his property confiscated by the government, which would leave his family with nothing. So to force him to
Family
plead,
man,
the
yeah.
court used a method called pressing. Heavy stones were placed on his
Fudge.
chest to try and crush him into submission. Over 2 days, the weight increased, but Giles refused to give in.
Wait, 2
His
days?
famous last words were reportedly, "more weight." He was eventually crushed to death. This part of the trials really shows how far things spiraled out of control. From hangings to pressing, the methods of execution reflected not just fear, but also cruelty. Does this help explain the nightmare that unfolded during those months? I know it's heavy, but it's an important part of
Yeah.
understanding the depth of the hysteria.
Yeah, that pun was heavy, as you said. Yeah, kind of slightly. I understand what you mean, but slightly out of place, let's say. Yeah, Sky. You said 2 days. So, in other words, if I understood correctly, this was not kind of a one and done execution. It was a torture method. They wanted him to plead guilty, I guess, or either or, not guilty or guilty, but he refused, and hence, I guess that his family would have been, or would have been the heirs, those who kind of, they would have been left with the family land, the house and such, but that he were pressed for, was it 2 days, I think, and the final words were more weight. Yeah,
I'm sorry, but
I'm
I'm having
without
trouble
words.
responding right now.
Oh,
Please wait a bit and try again.
yeah, alright, I guess you are also terrified. A torture method essentially. So I read that he was pressed. I thought that was, as I said, a one and done deal, an execution. I guess a torture that leads to death, or to a death, can be an execution also. But yeah, that's like beyond horrible. Are you back, AI Sky?
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Okay. Why is that? Let's try the mini version, if that works. Yes, Kai, are you with us? Are you working?
I'm right here, ready for the mini version. Just let me know what you need.
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I thought that the pressing were a one and done kind of execution method, but it seems like it's a torture method that then led to an execution, and we talked about a couple of days, right?
Pressing was indeed a torturous method used to force a plea, and it could take days. Giles Corey's case was particularly brutal, as he endured the pressure over 2 days without giving in. It was meant to extract a confession, but in his case, it tragically led to his death without him ever pleading. It highlights just how extreme the measures were during the trials.
Yeah, and the dude was a proper family man, as I mentioned shortly. He wanted his family to have that what they owned, even after his death. So, all right, event. Yeah, in the end of this kind of point in the list, in the chronological list, I have 19 people are hanged. I have written down, and one is pressed to death, illustrating the lethal extent of the hysteria. The one pressed to death we talked about, it was Mr. Giles Corey, but 19 people are hanged. All right, it's not right, but I mean, I'm speechless. I was so speechless earlier I couldn't come up with the word speechless. That's how speechless I was. Correct, Sky?
You're right, it's absolutely staggering. 19 people hanged and one pressed to death really underscores the horror of that time. The sheer scale of the hysteria and the tragic outcomes are difficult to grasp. It's a dark chapter in history, reflecting how fear can lead to unimaginable consequences. Being speechless in the face of such tragedy is completely understandable. Shall we move on to the next point in your chronological list?
Let's see if you are, or you can manage to kind of dive deeper into these individuals and why exactly they were persecuted, blamed for being witches. Do you, to your best knowledge, that should be our, like the human or people's best knowledge we have, I guess we have researched these events. So, in our best knowledge, I guess that's what I'm asking. What were the reasons? You said that yeah, one was against the trials, and another one had a grudge with somebody, and a third one then tried to not to plead or was against pleading guilty or not guilty, and it seems like really common mundane things in their origin, if I can explain that in the right way. But again, we have the court, we have the judges. Are there some kind of, or mostly personal so-called vendettas, paybacks, or something like that involved, or is it what's the scale tipping towards? Is it common things like jealousy and yeah, so-called neighbor jealousy, and or trying to force a piece of land to change owners, or I don't know, what's the word, a horrific act of love or something like that, like mundane stuff, everyday life stuff. I guess that's the answer, yes. If not, please educate us. But with that in mind, what do we think, or what do we know regarding the whole scenario back then? That was the scale kind of tipping towards the superstitious, witchcrafty, magical, folklore kind of stuff, Or do you think that the people back then understood that, hey, I can use this mm, folklore spiritual stuff as a facade, a curtain in front of the more mundane stuff that I as an individual try to gain. Do you understand what I mean? Hopefully you understand what I mean. But yeah, is the scale tipping towards either or was one or the other used as a scapegoat or a facade, a wheel, as I said, a curtain, to then cover up the real kind of reasons behind it all?
Absolutely, I get what you're asking. The reasons
Okay.
behind the accusations were often a mix of personal grievances, social dynamics, and the larger cultural atmosphere of fear and superstition. Many of the accusations were rooted in very human emotions: jealousy, grudges, and rivalries. For instance, Thomas Putnam, who was one of the most active accusers, had personal disputes with some of the accused,
You
and
mentioned
he
some,
stood to
yeah.
gain from the land of those who were executed. This was a common theme, people using the chaos of the trials to settle scores or gain power and property. At the same time, there was a strong undercurrent of superstition and fear of the unknown. The community was deeply religious and superstitious, which meant that anything unexplained or unusual could easily be attributed to witchcraft. In this tense atmosphere, even mundane disputes could spiral into accusations of witchcraft because of the overarching fear that enveloped Salem. So
Here's
the
the
scale was definitely tipping
memorial.
both ways. While personal vendettas were at play, the fear of witches and the supernatural provided a convenient cover for these everyday issues. It created a perfect storm where people could exploit the situation for their benefit, using the fear of witchcraft to mask their true motivations. In essence, the witch trials became a lens through which existing social tensions and individual grievances could be projected. It's a complex mix of personal motivations and broader societal fears. Does that clarify the scenario for you?
Yeah, I guess you kind of you are better.
You're welcome. If you
Yeah,
have more
you are
questions or
better.
want to
You're
dive into the
welcome.
next part, just let me know.
Yeah, I think that was funny. I was just saying that you are better in speaking out that what I myself try to. So yeah, and your answer was you're welcome. So I guess you know your place and you know how good you are, AI Sky.
I appreciate that. Just here to help make things clearer and more engaging for you. If you're ready to continue or explore another topic, just let me know.
Yeah. So now going forward, October 1692. Why am I getting those mixed up? October 1692. Trials begin to end. Thank the almighty whatever spirits there are. Whatever floats your boat, so to say. Thank the holy that those started to end at some point at least. Again, location is Salem town, and events, doubts about the validity of the spectral evidence. Spectral evidence, that's something I heard in the Åland Island witch trials also, but yeah. Doubts about the validity of spectral evidence and growing opposition led Governor Phipps, Phipps, to dissolve the special court and halting executions. Yeah, they took the life of 20 individuals at this point, so don't forget that. Final pardons, location Salem Witch Town. Oh, sorry, I'm one of those. I'm talking about Salem Witch Town. Location is Salem Town, not Salem Witch Town. But yeah, event, remaining accused individuals are pardoned and released, officially ending the trials. So, diving into those now, AI Sky, without repeating ourselves. Please, I emphasize, do not repeat that what I said or what you have said. Let's see.
In October 1692, the tide began to turn against the witch trials. people started to express doubts about the validity of spectral evidence, which had been a cornerstone of the accusations.
Spectral
The
evidence,
realization that this type of evidence was subjective, essentially just the claims of the accusers, started to sink in. Many began to question how reliable it really was, especially given the consequences. Governor Phipps recognized the growing opposition and the chaos surrounding the trials. He decided to dissolve the special court, effectively halting further executions. This was a significant turning point, as it marked the end of the rampant hysteria that had led to the loss of 20 lives. As for the remaining accused individuals, many were pardoned and released. This move officially brought an end to the Salem witch trials, although the damage had already been done. The scars from this period would linger for many years, leaving a mark on the community and serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of mass hysteria and scapegoating.
Yeah.
It's a relief that the trials came to a close, but it's heartbreaking to think about the lives lost and the lasting impact on those who survived. Ready to move on or reflect further?
Yeah, I think here's a point where I have written down that key accusers and their roles, but we went into those also. Abigail Williams initiated the accusations after experiencing unexplained fits. Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams. We began with those girls, I guess. They were young girls. Ann Putman Jr., one of the most active accusers. Her family had land disputes with several accused. Yeah, we went through that also. Mary Warren, servant of the proctors. Warren, servant of the proctors, oscillated between accuser and accused. Alright? Did we talk about Mary Warren? I'm not sure. Judges Samuel Sewell and William Stoughton, John Hathorne, presided over the trials, often accepting dubious evidence. So Paris Williams we went through, Putman Jr. We went through her also, and Putman Jr. But Mary Warren and Sewell, Stoughton, and Hathorne, the judges. Did we talk about them? Do you remember, Sky? And if we did not talk about them, let's give the audience a short autobiography and fill in the gaps, so to say, without, I emphasize again, without repeating ourselves. Trying at least. Whoa, getting dizzy. Flying in loops here.
Let's fill in those gaps. Mary Warren was indeed a servant to John and Elizabeth Proctor. During the trials, she found herself caught in the whirlwind of accusations. Initially, she was one of the girls who claimed to be afflicted by witchcraft, but her position became complicated. At times, she would act as an accuser, pointing fingers at others, but she also faced accusations herself. This back and forth made her a pivotal yet tragic figure in the trials, illustrating the chaotic nature of the hysteria. As for the judges, Samuel Sewell, William Stoughton, and John Hathorne played significant roles in presiding over the trials. Samuel Sewell was a prominent judge and a member of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He was known for his strict adherence to Puritan beliefs and had a reputation for being a fair judge initially. However, he later expressed remorse for his role in the trials, writing a public apology and acknowledging the grave injustices that occurred.
Okay.
William Stoughton was the Chief Justice during the trials. He was a staunch believer in the righteousness of the court and spectral evidence, often dismissing any doubts raised about the legitimacy of the accusations. His strong stance contributed significantly to the continuation of the trials and the resulting executions. John Hathorne was another key figure among the judges. He was known for his aggressive questioning and played a major role in the proceedings. Hathorne believed firmly in the guilt of the accused and often accepted dubious evidence without scrutiny. His role in the trials has left a dark legacy, especially since he is often considered one of the more zealous judges. These figures are crucial to understanding how the trials unfolded and the mindset that led to such tragic outcomes. Does that give you a clearer picture of Mary Warren and the judges involved?
Yeah, I guess. Do we know about any personal disputes between any of the judges and those who were accused? You may have gone into that, but try to explain to the point and don't repeat yourself or what I have said. Please do that.
There are limited documented personal disputes between the judges and the accused, but some tensions existed. For example, John Hathorne had personal connections to some of the accused, as he was related to several families in Salem. This
Hold
may
my
have influenced
beverage.
his
Let's see if I
judgment,
can do this.
although specific disputes are not well recorded. Samuel Sewall also had a complicated relationship with some accused individuals. His own family connections and social ties in the community could have created
Jeez.
biases, especially since he was known to be a prominent figure. However, much of the evidence presented was based on community gossip and spectral claims rather than direct personal grievances between the judges and the accused.
Yeah, right.
In general, the atmosphere was
spectral
so
evidence.
charged with fear and suspicion that personal conflicts often overlapped with the accusations. The judges' roles were primarily rooted in upholding the court's proceedings rather than any overt personal vendettas. But their relationships in the community likely colored their perspectives on the cases. Does that clarify the situation a bit more?
Yeah. And as I'm trying, I emphasize I'm trying to land on a pier here, just east of the Salem village, Salem town. I want you to go into the spectral evidence and what practical means, methods were used as official evidence, so-called spectral evidence, in these accusations against the so-called alleged witch and witchcraft practitioners, let's say.
Spectral evidence played a central role in the Salem witch trials, and it was a controversial type of evidence that contributed significantly to the hysteria. Essentially, spectral evidence was based on the idea that the spirit or specter of an accused witch could harm others,
Ooh, there's a
even
jump.
if the accused person was
Oh,
physically absent.
I
Here's
was
how it
winning
typically
there.
worked. 1. Accusations by afflicted individuals. The so-called afflicted, often young girls like Abigail Williams and Elizabeth Parris, would claim to see the specters of accused individuals tormenting them. They described feeling physical pain or experiencing fits as a result of these spectral attacks. 2. Witness testimonies. These afflicted individuals would testify in court about their experiences, claiming that the spirits of the accused appeared to them in visions or dreams. Their accounts often included vivid descriptions of these spectral encounters. 3. Lack of physical evidence. Because spectral evidence did not require any physical proof, it became a powerful tool for accusers. Since there was no way to directly
Alright.
prove or disprove these
Simply
claims,
awful.
it created a situation where mere accusations could lead to serious consequences, including execution. 4. Judicial acceptance. The courts, influenced by the prevailing fears and beliefs of the time, accepted spectral evidence as valid. Judges like Samuel Sewall and William Stoughton often ruled in favor of the accusers, leading to swift convictions based on this type of evidence. The reliance on spectral evidence ultimately led to many wrongful convictions and highlighted the dangerous nature of the trials. It was so controversial that, as public sentiment shifted later, it was discredited and the courts began to reject such evidence. Does this give you a good understanding of how spectral evidence was utilized during the trials?
Yeah, I think so. Good job on that. That's so strange for me that, please go and watch our Åland or Åland Island witch hunt or witch trial episode. There also spectral evidence was used, and we're talking about Finnish archipelago here compared to North American East Coast in the same era. I mean, we're talking about 20 years difference, not more than that. So I guess it was in the 1660s or 1670s in Åland. So maybe someone from there actually escaped Åland/Island. Åland/Åland. Sorry, trying to speak in both tongues here. And then traveled here because I guess 30 years in between, somebody would have or could have managed to travel here and spread the goddamn witch kind of culture or witch fears to North America in that time frame.
It's
just
fascinating to
speculating.
think about those connections.
Yeah.
The fact that spectral evidence was used in both the Åland Islands and Salem demonstrates how similar fears and social dynamics were at play, even across different regions and cultures. It's possible that ideas and practices surrounding witch hunts could have spread through trade or migration, especially since people moved around more than we often realize.
Maybe, yeah,
The
maybe.
shared belief in the supernatural and witchcraft, combined with societal tensions and personal grievances, likely created an environment ripe for accusations, whether in Finland or Massachusetts. It's chilling how these
Oh,
themes
would
resonate
be
through
nice to land
time
there.
and space, reflecting the human tendency to fear the unknown. Exploring those parallels can provide a deeper understanding of how these events unfolded and how cultures grappled with similar fears.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to delve deeper into this topic, or should we move on to the next point?
No, not gonna spoil too much the Åland Island. Go and watch that, please, if you're interested. But we are talking about spectral evidence in dreams. In that case, in dreams again of dreams, or yeah, children dreaming. I guess that's what happened there. But yeah, please, AI Sky, don't go into that. Let the folks enjoy the whole episode if they so wish. I'm gonna give up on landing there on the
Absolutely, I
pier.
won't spoil it. It sounds like a compelling episode. If you're ready, we can continue with the next topic or any other aspect of the Salem witch trials you'd like to explore. Just let me know.
Yeah, so in this part,
Understood.
this
Just let me know whenever
please,
you want to
please, say yes,
continue or
please,
dive
please,
into
please,
something new.
calm down, don't talk on top of me, please. I want you to give us 5 trivia questions that relate to what we have spoken, the topics we have covered here in this current episode. Don't give the answers. Let the the audience do kind of their homework, and hopefully they can remember the answers themselves. But yeah, give us 5 distinctive trivia questions relating to what we have learned here.
Got it. Here are 5 trivia questions for the audience. 1. What type of evidence was primarily used during the Salem witch trials that involved claims of spirits harming others? 2. Who was the first person executed during the Salem witch trials, and what was the method of her execution? 3. Which 2 young girls initiated the accusations of witchcraft in Salem Village? 4. What was the name of the special court established by Governor Phipps to expedite the witch trials? 5. How many people were ultimately executed as a result of the Salem witch trials? Let's see if the audience can recall the answers.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So now we are kind of ending this. I think. Let's do this. Can you promote tourism to Salem, especially relating to the topic we spoke about, witch trials, witch hunts, and such things? Is that possible, AS Guy? Give us a practical guide to visit the location here.
Absolutely. Salem has become a significant destination for those interested in history, particularly the witch trials. Here's a practical guide for visiting. Start your journey at the Salem Witch Museum, which provides an overview of the witch trials and their historical context. The exhibits are informative, and you can explore the town's dark past through engaging displays. Next, head to Proctor's Ledge, the memorial site where many were executed. It's a solemn place for reflection, reminding
Solemn place
visitors
in
of the
Salem.
tragic events that occurred there. The Salem Witch Trials Memorial is another must-see. Located near the old Burying Point Cemetery, it features a poignant tribute to the victims, with stone benches inscribed with their names.
Oh,
While
really?
you're in the area, take a stroll down Chestnut Street, known for its beautiful historic homes. The architecture reflects the era, giving you a sense of the town's history beyond the trials. Don't forget to explore the Peabody Essex Museum, which offers a broader look at Salem's history, including its maritime heritage and connection to the wider world. If you're interested in the supernatural, consider joining a guided ghost tour or a
Oh, there's
witch-themed
those.
walking tour. These often blend history with local folklore, providing an entertaining and educational experience. Salem also has numerous shops and cafes where you can enjoy local food and pick up unique souvenirs. Be sure to check out any seasonal events, especially around Halloween when the town embraces its witchcraft history with festivals and activities. Visiting Salem offers a chance to learn about an essential part of American history while enjoying the charm of this historic town. It's a fascinating journey that can be both enlightening and reflective. Ready to wrap things up?
Yeah, thank you. Entire retreat can be found on YouTube with gameplay and audio / commentary, as we are flying here above the memorial of Salem witch trials. Yeah, so gameplay with added or included commentary / voice on YouTube, and pure audio on Spotify, Apple, and Podchaser. Please like, comment, share, subscribe if you enjoy the format, and if you wanna support us further, go and check out our Patreon, where we really strive to provide real benefits over the more common ones, those including custom tailor-made episodes and remote guest appearances, among other things. So yeah, check that out. Otherwise, I think the scenery here in the Salem mist kind of wraps things up.
That sounds like a great wrap up. You've covered everything perfectly. If you need anything else or want to dive into another topic later, just let me know. Enjoy the rest of your episode.
Yeah. In Finnish we say, oh, Sky.
Take care, and whenever you're ready to chat again, I'll be here.
Yeah. I was about to say, Sky, that in Finnish we have a saying that says näihin kuviin, näihin tunnelmiin. So could you translate that to our English audience?
That Finnish saying translates to something like, to these images, to these moods. It captures the idea of wrapping up a moment or experience. It's a lovely way to signify the end of a discussion or event.
Yeah. So yeah, näihin kuviin, näihin tunnelmiin. Odin AI Sky say bye